The Sparkle Festival was a symphony of light and sound, a dizzying kaleidoscope that threatened to overwhelm even the most seasoned reveler. For Maya Rodriguez, all of 8 years old, it was pure magic. Each stall, draped in shimmering fabrics and strung with glowing orbs, beckoned with the promise of untold treasures. The air hummed with the rhythmic pulse of drums, the sweet scent of candied nuts, and the excited chatter of 1,000 voices. "Look, Mama, look!" Maya tugged on her mother's embroidered shawl, her eyes wide with wonder. A craftsman was shaping molten glass into delicate swans, each one catching the light and scattering rainbows across the cobblestone street. Her mother smiled, her own face reflecting the joyful chaos of the festival. "Beautiful, isn't it, mi hija?" Maya nodded, captivated. She wanted to reach out and touch one of the swans, to feel the heat that still radiated from its delicate form. But her father, ever practical, steered them onward. "Come on, girls. We don't want to miss the water show at the fountain. They say it's spectacular this year." The fountain, situated at the heart of the festival near the main stage, was already surrounded by a throng of people. Performers in iridescent costumes danced on platforms built over the water, their movements synchronized with bursts of colored light that erupted from the fountain's depths. Maya craned her neck, trying to get a better view. The spray from the fountain misted her face, and she giggled, delighted. "Papa, can we get closer?" she pleaded, pointing towards a gap in the crowd near the fountain's edge. Her father hesitated, surveying the dense mass of bodies. "I don't know, Maya. It's very crowded. Stay close to us. Okay?" He squeezed her hand, and they began to inch forward, her mother following close behind. The air grew thick with anticipation as the music swelled, building to a crescendo. Then, the fountain exploded in a dazzling display of light and water, shooting shimmering jets high into the air. The crowd gasped, mesmerized. In that moment of collective awe, Maya's attention was caught by something else entirely. Just beyond the fountain, a vendor was selling miniature lanterns, each one painted with a different constellation. They flickered with a soft, inviting glow, promising secrets whispered from the stars. She yearned to have one, to hold the vastness of the night sky in her small hands. Without thinking, she took a step forward, drawn towards the lanterns like a moth to a flame. The crowd surged around her, a sea of sparkling costumes and bobbing heads. She reached out for her father's hand, but it was no longer there. Panic began to bubble in her chest. She tried to call out, but her voice was lost in the roar of the crowd and the booming music. "Mama? Papa?" She spun around, desperately searching for their familiar faces. All she saw were strangers, their faces lit by the artificial glow of the festival. The lanterns seemed to beckon her closer, their soft light a promise of comfort in the overwhelming chaos. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring the already disorienting scene. She was alone, adrift in a sea of sparkles. Lost in the crowd, the sweet, heavy aroma of fried dough and grilled corn morphed into a sharp, acidic tang that stung Isabella's nose. One second, Maya was right there, her small hand clutching Isabella's blouse, pleading for another dizzying spin on the teacups. The next, an empty space. "Marco?" Isabella breathed, her voice a fragile thread against the vibrant pulse of the cumbia. "Marco, Maya's gone." Marco lowered his cone of elote, his expression clouding. He surveyed the multitude, a kaleidoscope of summer clothes and floral headbands. "She was just beside me, right here. Maya." He amplified his voice, the sound swallowed by the festive clamor. Isabella's pulse quickened, each beat a frantic drum. "Maya!" She plunged into the throng, a desperate bee searching a barren field. "Maya! Mija! Where are you?" Marco joined the search, his earlier composure fracturing, replaced by tremors he couldn't conceal. He began questioning those nearby, his Spanish inflected with raw fear. "Have you seen a little one? About so high? Dark braids? A blue dress?" The responses were uniform. Blank stares, sympathetic shakes of the head, murmured apologies. Spotting a security officer by the stage, his luminous vest a stark contrast to the revelry. Isabella seized his arm, her grip surprisingly firm. "My daughter is missing. We can't locate her." Initially, the young man responded with detachment, but his facade crumbled as Isabella's distress mounted. He spoke into his radio, his tone concise and urgent. "Missing child reported. Female approximately 6, blue dress, dark braids. Last seen near the teacup attraction." Static crackled, then silence. A moment later, the guard spoke again, his face etched with concern. "Initiate lockdown protocol. All exits are to be secured. No entry or exit until further notice." The music ceased abruptly. A wave of bewilderment washed over the gathering. The musicians stared, instruments poised in midair. The animated conversations hushed, replaced by an unsettling quiet. A low murmur began to swell. "What is going on?" a woman whispered, her voice edged with worry. "Why are they closing the gates?" a man demanded, pushing against the metal barrier. The atmosphere grew thick with suspicion and dread. People jostled, their celebratory mood evaporating, replaced by a primitive instinct to understand, to flee. Isabella's stomach clenched as the joyful festival morphed into a potential catastrophe. She met Marco's gaze, his face a stark landscape of terror. "We have to find her," he rasped, his voice raw with emotion. "We have to find our Maya." Gareth Stone, a man sculpted from granite and weathered by the West Gate's gales, possessed a face that rarely softened, a voice, a deep baritone, that could quell any riot. The Black Guard, they called him Guardian of the West Gate. Yet, a hidden tenderness resided within him, a soft spot for children, a sentiment he guarded fiercely, expressed only in anonymous gifts of food left at the orphanage. Now, an unsettling tremor ran through the normally stoic West Gate. Maya, the baker's daughter, had vanished, her name a frantic whisper on the wind. Gareth, a stoic figure amid the growing panic, scanned the worried faces with his practiced, eagle eye. "Gareth?" Captain Alara's voice, sharp as honed steel, sliced through the mounting clamor. Anxiety tightened her features, so unlike her usual unwavering resolve. Maya was reportedly seen near the West Gate around midday. "Did you notice her?" A muscle ticked in Gareth's jaw. "I see a multitude, Captain. Merchants, travelers, villagers bound for the market." "A small girl, red coat," Alara persisted, her gaze unwavering. "Around 7 years of age." He hesitated, dredging his memory of the morning's procession. "A child, yes. Scarlet coat." She headed towards the woods, unaccompanied. At the time, it had seemed innocuous. Children often explored the forest, foraging or playing. A green recruit, voice trembling, chimed in. "Sergeant Bellick claims he saw you." "Speaking with her, sir." Gareth turned, his stare a glacial blast. Bellick, ever ambitious, undoubtedly saw an opportunity for advancement. "I spoke to many. I request documentation, verify identities. It is the nature of my post." Alara raised a hand, silencing him. "We need to review the gate recordings. Show me what you observed, Gareth." The playback flickered to life in the gatehouse, the grainy images revealing the ceaseless flow of travelers. Gareth indicated the moment in question. A small figure, the bright red coat a vivid splash against the somber hues of stone and gate, appeared on screen. He watched his on-screen self lean down, his lips moving as he spoke, likely inquiring about her destination. She seemed to answer, then continued onward, disappearing into the shadowed maw of the forest path. "And after that?" Alara pressed, her tone tight with barely contained fear. Gareth shook his head. "She entered the woods. That's all I saw." Silence descended, thick and suffocating. Alara massaged her temples, her gaze riveted to the screen. Abruptly, a technician spoke, his voice laced with bewilderment. "Captain, there's an anomaly, a discontinuity in the timeline, immediately following the girl's passage." Alara's head snapped up. "Explain discontinuity." "Nearly an hour of footage is missing." as if purposefully expunged. A chilling premonition seized Gareth. Deliberate erasure. He hadn't tampered with the controls. He wouldn't dare. A stark violation of protocol. The young recruit, eyes wide with apprehension, blurted, "But Sergeant Bellick mentioned seeing you near the control panel, sir." Right after she went through. The air in the watchtower surveillance room crackled with nervous energy. Dust motes danced in the harsh glare of the monitor as Sergeant Alara jabbed at the controls. Beside her, Gareth Stone stood stiffly, his jaw tight. Across the narrow table, Councilman Thorne leaned forward, his face a mask of grim expectation. "Right before midnight," Alara muttered, her voice strained. "This is when Maya would have passed through the west gate." The screen showed the familiar, if slightly distorted, view of the west gate. The night was quiet, the cobblestones gleaming faintly under the sodium lamps. Gareth, his broad shoulders filling the frame, stood his post, his halberd resting easy. Nothing seemed amiss. Alara sped up the playback, the minutes blurring by. A lone merchant, haggard and late, shuffled through the gate. Pair of giggling lovers, hand in hand. And then, nothing. The image froze, pixelated and fractured. A garbled screech filled the room. "What in the void is that?" Thorne demanded, his voice sharp. Alara swore under her breath, hitting keys with increasing frustration. "Corrupted. 10 minutes missing right at the crucial time." Gareth's face paled. "Corrupted? But I checked the system that morning. Everything was functional." "Checked it how, Gareth?" Thorne's gaze was like a physical weight. "Did you run a diagnostic? Or just glance at the blinking lights?" "I ran the diagnostic," Gareth snapped, his voice raw. "I always do. You know I do." Came back clear. He ran a hand through his close-cropped hair, leaving it disheveled. The rasp of his calloused palm against his scalp echoed in the small room. Alara managed to rewind the footage to the last coherent frame before the corruption. She zoomed in on Gareth's face. He was looking directly at the camera, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Is that static?" Alara murmured, pointing at the screen. A barely perceptible distortion shimmered around Gareth's head. "Static? From what?" Thorne scoffed. "A conveniently timed lightning strike?" Gareth slammed his fist on the table, making Alara jump. "I swear on my father's name, I didn't do anything. I didn't see Maya that night. I would have reported it." The metal of his gauntlet rang against the table's edge. Thorne rose, his face inches from Gareth's. The councilman smelled of old parchment and something faintly metallic. "Then explain the missing footage, Guardian. Explain the static. Explain why, suddenly, we should believe a man who has stood silent while a child goes missing." Gareth stared back, his eyes burning with a mixture of fury and desperation. The air in the room thickened with suspicion, a suffocating fog that threatened to drown him. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the surveillance equipment, a mechanical heartbeat counting down the moments until his world shattered. The intern's insight Leo Maxwell bounced on the balls of his feet, a tangle of charging cables threatening to spill from his overloaded backpack. He looked like a student who'd accidentally wandered into a crime scene, all oversized glasses and an untamed mop of brown hair. "So," he began, his voice cracking slightly, "I hear you've got some digital gremlins?" Gareth Stone, arms crossed and jaw tight, regarded him with open suspicion. Digital gremlins managed to erase a week of security footage. Gremlins with admin privileges, most likely. Across the cramped security room, Detective Harding sighed. "Leo here comes highly recommended by the IT department. Said he's got a knack for resurrecting the dead, digitally speaking." Leo grinned, oblivious to the palpable tension. He dumped his backpack onto a spare desk, the thud echoing in the otherwise silent room. Resurrecting might be a strong word. More like aggressive data recovery. I've got some custom-built algorithms that can often piece together fragmented files, even after a pretty thorough scrubbing. He pulled out a sleek, custom-built laptop, its case adorned with glowing circuit patterns. Gareth snorted. Custom built. Just what we need. Another variable in this mess. Ignoring him, Leo plugged his laptop into the server. The screen flickered to life, displaying a barrage of code that scrolled too fast for the untrained eye to follow. His fingers flew across the keyboard, a blur of practiced movements. All right, let's see what we're working with. Severely corrupted video files dating back to last Tuesday? Ugh, someone really did a number on this. He winced, squinting at the screen. Harding leaned closer. Can you tell anything? Maybe. It's like trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle after someone threw it in a blender. But there are fragments. I can see directory structures, timestamps, signs of targeted deletion. He paused, his brow furrowed. And something else. It's faint, but there's residual encryption. Looks like someone tried to overwrite the data with gibberish, then encrypted that. Amateur hour really makes my job a little easier. Gareth shifted uncomfortably. Encryption? Why would anyone encrypt garbage data? Good question, Leo mumbled, his eyes glued to the screen. Maybe they were trying to make sure it stayed gone. Or maybe they were trying to hide something within the garbage. He typed furiously, launching a series of commands. The room was filled with the hum of his laptop's cooling fans, the only sound besides the rhythmic click of his fingers on the keys. The security team watched in uneasy silence, their faces illuminated by the glow of the screen. The room felt colder now, the air thick with anticipation. Even Gareth seemed to have lost some of his bravado. His eyes narrowed in apprehension as Leo worked. The fate of the investigation, it seemed, rested on the shoulders of the awkward, overcaffeinated intern hunched over his glowing laptop. Into the tunnels the server room throbbed, a steady pulse of fans and indicator lights that usually calmed Leo. Tonight, it only amplified the frantic drumbeat in his chest. He fought with the mangled file code dissolving into an unintelligible blur on the screen. Behind him, Gareth loomed, a silent, weighty figure radiating palpable unease. Leo felt the man's suspicion like a physical weight pressing down on him. Almost there, Leo mumbled, fingers dancing across the keys. Hours he'd spent on this, fueled by stale coffee and the gnawing sensation that Maya's vanishing act was no accident. The official story, crowd crush, overwhelmed staff, a simple case of getting lost in the melee, rang false. He'd seen the stark dread in her eyes just before she disappeared. A fragmented picture bloomed on the monitor, a ghostly echo of a moment. It was Maya. Shadow obscured part of her face, but her stance, the way she clutched her bag, was unmistakable. A wave of relief washed over Leo, swiftly followed by a stab of perplexity. Magnify, enhance that area, Gareth rumbled, pointing to a shadowed passageway in the background. Leo coaxed the software, pushing the boundaries of the corrupted data. The picture sharpened, revealing a sign, nearly swallowed by grime. Service tunnel, authorized access only. Maya was heading that way. Gareth cursed softly. Those tunnels are off limits. Nobody goes down there without express permission. The air thickened with unspoken implications. Maya hadn't simply wandered off in the crowd. She had purposefully, maybe desperately, sought refuge in a place she had no business being, which suggested someone with power knew she was down there. Leo looped the recovered snippet, locking onto the timestamp. It was taken almost an hour after the first reports of the chaos. An hour during which Maya had vanished from sight. An hour she'd spent heading toward the service tunnels. This clears me, right? Gareth asked, his voice a fragile whisper of hope. I was manning the main gate. Never saw her. Leo gave a slow nod. The image placed Maya far from Gareth's post. It redirected the suspicion, absolving the guard at least in part. But it also birthed far more disturbing possibilities. Why the tunnels? Who guided her there? A shiver traced its way down Leo's spine despite the room's warmth. He sensed they had only uncovered a corner of something far more sinister, a danger that ran far deeper than a simple case of panic. He saved the image, his stomach clenching with the certainty that this was merely the prelude. Spark Sparky's secret Leo Maxwell hummed off-key, headphones askew, as another fragmented track of data crawled across his triple monitor setup. "Come on, you little digital gremlin," he muttered, coaxing the corrupted file. He'd been at it for hours, fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer stubbornness. The music box data was proving elusive, like trying to catch smoke with a sieve. Finally, a recognizable waveform flickered onto the screen. He isolated it, cleaned up the static, and hit play. A tinkling melody filled the cramped room, achingly familiar. It was the tune from Maya's music box, slowed and distorted, but undeniably there. A chill snaked down Leo's spine. He played it again, then again. Why would someone record the melody, mangle it, and then bury it deep within the festival sound system? "Detective Reyes," he called, not taking his eyes off the screen. "I think I've got something." Reyes arrived moments later, her face etched with fatigue. "What is it, Leo?" "Anything." He played the track. Her expression hardened as the melody ended. "The music box, you're sure?" "Positive. It's distorted, but it's the same tune. Someone recorded it, probably on site, and then messed with it." Reyes swore under her breath. "Okay, let's look at the security feeds again. All of them. I want to see if anyone was carrying a music box or acting suspiciously near Maya earlier today." They spent the next hour sifting through hours of footage. Festival attendees blurred past, a kaleidoscope of costumes and colors. Then, Leo stopped the playback. "Wait, rewind that." The camera, positioned near the children's crafts area, showed Mr. Abernathy, or rather, someone dressed as Sparky the Firefly, the festival's mascot, leading a small figure by the hand. The figure was partially obscured by the crowd, but the bright pink backpack was unmistakable. That's Maya," Reyes breathed, her voice tight. Leo zoomed in, enhancing the image. The Sparky costume was pristine, the oversized antennae bobbing cheerfully. He paused the frame. Sparky was bending down, saying something to Maya. Maya looked up, her face hidden, and then nodded. They walked on, disappearing into the throngs of people. "Abernathy, he was supposed to be setting up the pyrotechnics show," Reyes said, her voice dangerously low. "He never mentioned seeing Maya, never reported her missing." The cheerful music of the festival speakers seemed to mock them, a discordant counterpoint to the growing dread in the room. Reyes grabbed her phone. "Get a unit to Abernathy's house. Now, and flag his car. I want him found. Immediately." The collectors. Confession. The warrant felt heavy in Detective Harding's hand as he pushed open the door to Mr. Abernathy's office. Dust motes danced in the shafts of afternoon sun, slicing through the stained glass windows. The air smelled of old paper, beeswax, and something indefinably sweet, like sugared almonds long past their prime. "Start with the desk," Harding instructed Miller, his younger partner. "Anything out of the ordinary." Abernathy's desk was a chaotic landscape of scattered manuscripts, quills, and half-empty inkwells. Miller carefully sifted through the papers, his brow furrowed in concentration. Harding, meanwhile, circled the room, his gaze sweeping over the overflowing bookshelves and the peculiar assortment of artifacts scattered about. A tarnished silver locket, a chipped porcelain doll, a collection of antique keys hanging from a velvet ribbon. "Detective," Miller called out, his voice tight, "take a look at this." Spread across the desk were blueprints, not for any ordinary building, but for a network of tunnels snaking beneath the city, their intricate details meticulously rendered. Harding recognized sections that matched the tunnels where Maya had disappeared. His stomach clenched. Then Miller pointed to a cabinet tucked away in a corner. Inside, nestled on velvet cushions, were dozens of music boxes. Each one was unique, crafted from different materials: wood, metal, even bone. Harding cautiously opened one. A haunting melody filled the room, a tune that tugged at a half-forgotten memory. A shuffle at the doorway announced Abernathy's arrival. His face, usually beaming, was now etched with a network of fine lines, his eyes wide with a disconcerting blend of fear and defiance. "Silas Abernathy, you are under arrest for suspicion of kidnapping," Harding announced, his voice devoid of emotion. Abernathy didn't resist as they cuffed him. He simply stared at the music boxes, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. At the station, after hours of stonewalling, he finally cracked. "I didn't hurt her," he whispered, his voice hoarse. I wanted to show her." He confessed to luring Maya into the tunnels, promising her a glimpse into a hidden world. He'd seen her sketching in the park, noticed the way she seemed drawn to the forgotten corners of the city. He knew she, like him, appreciated the beauty of lost things. "I collect them," he continued, his voice rising in pitch. "Lost things, forgotten things, things that deserve to be remembered." He gestured vaguely. The music boxes, each one belonged to someone who vanished, a piece of their soul trapped inside. "And Maya," Harding pressed, his voice low. Abernathy's gaze drifted away. She reminded me of someone I lost a long time ago. I thought maybe she could help me find her again." His voice broke. "But she got scared. She ran. And I panicked." Harding leaned forward. "Where is she, Abernathy?" Abernathy shook his head. His eyes filled with a desperate, pleading light. "I don't know. She vanished, just like all the others." A light in the dark. The air in the ventilation shaft was thick with dust and the metallic tang of stale air. Maya coughed, her throat raw. A distant glimmer caught her eye, a tiny pinprick of light that grew steadily larger. Voices, muffled but distinct, echoed closer. "Maya, can you hear us?" It was her father. Relief washed over her, so potent it made her knees weak. "Daddy, I'm here. I'm stuck." Soon, a section of the metal grating above her was wrenched aside, revealing a circle of worried faces illuminated by flashlights. Strong arms reached down, pulling her up and out of the suffocating darkness. As she was lifted into her mother's embrace, she clung tight, the scent of her familiar perfume a balm to her frayed nerves. Gareth watched the reunion from a distance, the knot of tension in his shoulders loosening for the first time in hours. The security footage, hastily reviewed and replayed, had been unambiguous. It showed Maya wandering away from the designated viewing area, drawn by something only she could see, and then Abernathy. Silas Abernathy, with his disarming smile and twinkling eyes, had been the last person to interact with her. He'd knelt, whispered something, and pointed towards the ventilation shaft entrance, obscured by a decorative screen. Gareth had been cleared, his name restored, but the victory tasted like ash. Abernathy hadn't reported seeing Maya. He hadn't raised an alarm. He'd simply vanished. The festival grounds, once vibrant with color and music, felt muted, drained. The remaining displays flickered with a hollow brilliance. The scheduled finale, a dazzling pyrotechnic display choreographed to a newly composed symphony, was cancelled. The official announcement cited unforeseen technical difficulties, but everyone knew the truth. The joy had been stolen, replaced by a gnawing unease. Even the closing ceremony felt wrong. Mayor Thompson, his face pale and drawn, gave a short, somber speech, thanking the emergency services and offering condolences to Maya's family, even though she was safe. He promised a thorough investigation, his voice lacking its usual booming confidence. As the crowds dispersed, Gareth lingered near the now silent main stage. The air was thick with the scent of extinguished fireworks and spilled sugar. He saw Maya, her parents flanking her protectively, being led towards a waiting car. She looked small, fragile, but there was a spark of defiance in her eyes. He knew with a chilling certainty that this was far from over. Abernathy's disappearance, the deliberate misdirection, the whispers in the dark, it all pointed to something far more sinister than a simple misunderstanding. The Sparkle Festival had revealed not just creativity and innovation, but also a darkness that lurked beneath the glittering surface, a darkness Gareth now felt compelled to expose.